Conventional money will no longer be relevant. Mass and energy will take the place of dollars. Anybody in the AI race, that's going to be the game.
There's only one person that can put you in space.
Google has all my data.
The execution of this IPO was beautiful.
But in a world of AI agents, where you're essentially going to be trusting AI with all your data, who has that trust?
This is where Mercedes gave up. Meta is perceived as a cigarettes company. You might be addicted to nicotine or social media, but you're not feeling good about it.
How far is he living in the future from you and me?
Elon and SpaceX has dramatically dropped that price. We can now see a world where there's going to be tens of thousands of small data centers up in space. The real competition is going to come out of China.
What's underhyped right now in AI? Hey, Phil. It's been 2 weeks. Has anything happened since we've been gone?
This time I'm going to say absolutely nothing epic. You know, every single time we get together, it's like 2 weeks goes by and there's a lot of stuff that happens. And this last 2 weeks, wow.
Yeah.
To the moon.
Let's start it off by this. Since the SpaceX IPO, I've got you sitting on a massive pile of cash from your successful IPO winnings. This might be overdoing it a little bit, but I
haven't sold a share.
Oh, okay, good. All right, so it's not cash yet then.
No, just a buyer.
Yeah, yeah, and you were posting about this as things went along.
Yeah.
You captured SpaceX there with a market cap of a mere 2.3 trillion.
I got it wrong, didn't I?
That was back when it was 178 a share. It seems like a long time ago now.
Yeah, a long time ago. Yeah. Look, I am hoping it comes in. I am hoping and praying that the doldrums of summer come in, hit us, that the FUD machine about insider selling hits us. Because I don't give a crap about what happens in the next year with this company. I just want it cheap.
Yeah.
But, I saw it rush. What was it? Rushed after market the other day to 220, 2 something. I don't know.
220 something, I thought.
Yeah, 222 maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Something nuts. And I was like, I'm guessing that those index funds are going, man, we got to get in or we're going to get hosed. I don't know. Look, this is the chart that matters, right? Look at that infinitesimally small float. That's the number of shares that are sold in the public side of this business.
Yeah.
We're all trading around 555 million or whatever with the green shoe. We're all
683 million, I think. Yep.
Yeah. We're all trading a good 600 million shares around, and the rest are sitting in 96% of that bucket. And look at our friend Elon. I think that number is actually higher, isn't it? Like 41, 42 or something.
So we're trading, 10% of his shares right now?
Yeah, all of us.
All of us, everybody collectively.
Yeah.
Pretty wild.
What a magic act.
Pretty wild.
You know what's crazy? I think, on the execution of this IPO was beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. I can't fault anything they've done. I hate to use this word because it sounds negative, but they pumped it properly, because that's what you need to do. You need to sell. If you're going to make a company, a public company, you need to come out with momentum. And they really kind of lined up that momentum and popped different things along the way that made us see the future of the company from, a mere 18 billion or so in revenue from Starlink to projecting 50 something billion with Starlink at the close of 26.
Mm-hmm.
That all kind of came in the whole quiet period, right? That's all that. And in the meantime, we did a bunch of rocket launches there, and Starship did its thing, and wow.
Which is interesting because everybody was saying that those rocket launches were crazy to do during the IPO.
You'd think so, but if you were an airline and you did, you did daily flights and you were, Spirit, no, that's a bad one. Pick somebody else. But
yeah,
in the middle, you IPO'd, you wouldn't stop your flights. And
right.
and I think the point I'm trying to make is that at least with respect to Falcon, that's running kind of at the safety metrics of an airline
yes.
these days. So at one level you'd say super risky because we watched, Bezos and friends have a terrible accident on a static fire test a couple weeks ago. So launching rockets is incredibly risky, at least at some level. I mean, I guess the thing is when they blow up, it's pretty epic. It's like we've talked about this in the past. A fender bender with a car is sort of unnoticed so maybe somebody gets hurt, but it's unnoticed by the world. But a rocket blows up, it's pretty obvious.
It is. It's hard to hide a exploding rocket.
Yeah, it really is. It's a funny thing about, if you're, let's say Optimus is like kicking ass in the Tesla lab. We don't know about that, right?
Right.
But they're going to go test Starship. What are they going to do? They can't launch it inside. I mean, besides doing their simulations, which they do all day long with that thing, which must be really interesting, by the way. You just can't hide that puppy.
Yeah, you'd have to have a relationship with Russia or something and launch it from somewhere in Siberia to have a chance at hiding it. But that's not going to happen anytime soon. Right.
I mean, especially where they launch, and it's incredibly public. People go. Elon invites people down. He has for a long time, and in this country, you got to file with, I believe, the FAA. So you got that whole airman watch thing that goes on, and so it's kind of impossible unless maybe he goes back to that island that famous island where he launched the Falcon 1 years ago.
Yeah, it doesn't really have the infrastructure.
No, can't really transport something as big as Starship. I mean, the interesting thing about Starship is the only way to really transport Starship is to fire up those Raptor engines and move it.
That's the best way.
I mean, if you remember, there's some photos of them manufacturing a Falcon 9, I think the first or second, I don't remember, and moving it literally from somewhere in Texas. So don't think it was Starbase, to Cape Canaveral over roads with insane. They had to shut down the highways, and there's plenty of photos out there, and that thing looked enormous.
Yeah,
and that thing looks like
it's tiny compared to Starship.
Yeah, it looks like a toothpick compared to whatever. So Starship, the only way to move Starship is to pretty much, other than moving it from, the factory. I mean, that's the interesting thing about Starship is the factory and the launch pad have to be really darn close to each other.
Ideally.
Right? Otherwise, you're transporting on a slow thing and you would have to have private roads. All right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, so here's the top 10 as of just before our show. Not a whole lot of change, certainly not in the order. But we've got Tesla at 1.5 trillion. We've got SpaceX now at number 5 at 2.6 trillion. It's trading places, I guess, on a daily basis with Amazon. And briefly, I think was ahead of Microsoft there for a while.
That's right. It was when it was at that aftermarket, I guess it popped up ahead of Microsoft.
Yeah. So pretty amazing to have two Elon companies in the top 10 of the world's largest companies.
Insane. He's the CEO of the two of these companies.
Yeah.
And potentially one. And I don't mean you got fired. I mean that they merge.
That's right. That's right. And it's interesting. I just want to take a minute or two here. We always focus on the top 10, NVIDIA, Alphabet, Apple, Microsoft, SpaceX, Amazon, TSMC, Broadcom, Saudi Aramco, and Tesla. Here's the next 10. Samsung, pretty important company for the AI space.
Big time.
Meta, Micron, SK Hynix, right? So two memory companies, over $1 trillion each. Berkshire Hathaway at $1 trillion. And then sub $1 trillion is Lilly, Walmart, JP Morgan, AMD, and ASML. And then just to round out the top 30, we've got a few older companies like Visa, Intel, ExxonMobil, J&J, Oracle, Tencent, Applied Materials, LAM Research, ARM Holdings, and Cisco Systems. It's kind of neat that Cisco made the top 30 list because
Cisco was such a high flyer in the .com days. It was insane, right? What's remarkable about this list is it's so tech heavy. I mean, it just kind of shows the future. It's not a bunch of railroad and steel companies.
No.
There's some financial companies, there's some drug companies, but the rest of this is all tech, and a lot of hardware. There's a lot of makers of gold pans and jeans.
That's right. That's right.
You know, I mean, you don't see a pure software. Well, I mean, you said Microsoft. I guess Meta is a pure software play.
So are you saying that NVIDIA is like the Levi Strauss of today's world?
Yeah, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I mean,
sometimes
I marvel at this. I think, you know, part of this is so ingrained that this is just our daily life now, right? This is what we do. This is what we live. And it's like, it would be like some idiot like me marveling at, oh, look at these railroad companies, you know, back when. But, you know, if you do step back and you just pause a second and you realize, my God, what's going on here? You know, it's having SpaceX shoot up. I mean, the thing about SpaceX is it didn't come out of nowhere. I mean, it's been around since 2002 as a private company. It's been, you know, doing its thing for quite some time. But to just show up here, I mean, isn't that the problem we have with the whole kerfluffle with the S&P 500? Like, it's blasted through the other S&P indexes, and now it's at the range of 500, and they don't know what to do
right.
they?
It's crazy. It's crazy.
I mean, I think we know what they're gonna do, but you know, I think it's it just breaks all the rules. The small float, which is, I think, extraordinary for what it is. I mean, how many times have I posted and said, like a broken record, that the top 2 companies by market cap in the world are on this list, and they are SpaceX and Tesla, probably in that order.
Yeah.
Probably on a 5 to 10 year, you know, timeline. But I believe that. And the only reason that isn't true is because they probably will merge. And then, of course, the resulting company would be number 1. But I mean, we've talked about this, SpaceX has a tremendous future just if you put a narrow lens on the compute problem for AI. You don't have to go into the full story about industrialization of space. You don't have to mention Mars or the moon once. All you need to do is mention demand for compute, and they, as the key supplier, that most of the people on this list that are at anybody that's doing frontier has to go through SpaceX to compute in the future. It seems to me absolutely unavoidable. So that's an extraordinary thing. And for that alone, for the people who get it, that's why it's here. You know, because Anthropic has no play unless it goes through SpaceX, and it just did. I mean, it just sort of made its first move, but it deeply wants to get in. So deeply wants to get into space. It wants to get into the space side of it because it's going to need the compute. Google's there too, right?
Well, you could argue that Google, Microsoft, Amazon have no chance unless they get compute into space. Anybody in the AI race, that's going to be the game.
It is literally the game, and there's only one person that can put you in space. Yeah, at least on a 10-year horizon. I mean, at scale, my God, it's so obvious.
Right. That's right. It's interesting, Phil, because Elon just I think a couple of days ago, and he said this before, but I'll just read what he said a couple of days ago. He said, "It's humbling to consider that if we harness just 1/1,000,000th of the sun's power for AI, that'll be much more than 1,000,000 times the intelligence of all humanity." Okay. And then James Stevenson asked a question. He said, "Can you get to 1/1,000,000th of the sun's energy with sun synchronous Earth orbit alone? Or will you need to launch many satellites into solar orbit outside Earth's gravity to accomplish that?" And Elon responded, he said, it would require manufacturing solar panels and radiators on the moon.
Yeah.
And launching them into deep space with a mass driver.
Yeah.
Well before that, conventional money will no longer be relevant. Mass and energy will take the place of dollars. So this is something that he said before. And I think it's always kind of puzzled people because it's sort of like, well, how is money going away?
Yeah.
So here's my analogy for this. And see if this makes sense to you. I actually wrote a post about this today, and I didn't grab the slides here, but I'll just verbalize it to you. Think about you're on a beautiful Pacific island, and the island is called Yap, and you're using stones for money, right? And you've got a society that is well established. It's been using the stone money for a long time. And the stones have value because you have to go to Palau to mine the stones, to cut the stones and you got to carry them by canoe across the ocean to get back to your island. Okay? Your system of money is working beautifully. You have no problem. And then all of a sudden, one day, a bunch of Europeans show up at your shores in big ships. And over time, your stone money becomes useless because they either take it or they make more of it or whatever. They replace it with their own form of money. So they've shown up with better technology, a better monetary system, better basically everything. And I ask kind of provocatively, is the Earth the new island of Yap? In that what Elon is doing with his companies is showing up with better technology.
Mm-hmm.
Also, better ships, by the way, starships.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
We can now put the stuff up into space, or we'll be able to.
Yeah. Yes.
Better ships.
Yes.
Better technology. And therefore, the form of money that we have on planet Earth, also then it follows that will find some kind of foundational change at some point.
Yeah.
Right. And Elon's been talking about this, but not in that much detail. He just keeps mentioning that conventional money will no longer be relevant. And we're kind of left to wonder, like, what the heck does he mean?
Right.
You know? And it's not that the stone money doesn't exist anymore. It does. All the stone money that was ever created still exists. It's just that it's not relevant anymore.
Right.
And I wonder if that's also then the case for the forms of money that we see today. It's kind of interesting to think about.
You know, I think there's two thought patterns that enter my brain. You know, the one is the conventional thought pattern seems impossible, right? Like you go, oh, this is how I lived my life on this earth. And, you know, I think each of us as humans, when we live within some kind of societal structure, think that at its time and place, it's the most, I don't know, advanced or set up. Like, I don't think if you moved around small stones that were, you know, pre-Roman coins or something, you would think that there's something wrong with it.
Yeah.
You would think it's kind of normalized, and you would say, I can't. And then the other side of me says, it seems incredibly inevitable, you know, and I think that side of me just has a hard time connecting the dots as to, well, what is that? Because, you know, there seems to be this idea of abundance in general, like that concept is hard to swallow as well, because you look at it and you'd say, well, the whole idea is that there is some scarcity, and, you know, that things that have scarcity have the value, and you're fulfilling the need of the scarcity. So, like, abundance in one level doesn't mean that it's got to mean that not everything is abundant. You know, there's these things that are unobtainable. Maybe the point you're making, maybe I'm slow to this, is that you're saying that the door through which that Elon is constructing those things, and the door through which we must go is the Elon universe.
He's building a superior technology in many forms, whether it's self-driving cars, humanoid robots, superior rockets, superior AI, cheaper AI, batteries, you know, energy storage with battery systems, you know, energy generation in space, which you need for AI, et cetera. He's building a whole new economic system.
Yeah, and filling those scarcity buckets, right?
Yeah.
I mean, where something had, you know, if you say, well, I don't have enough gold, there's scarcity of gold. Okay, it has value. You know, I don't have a way to get to space. I can't get 10 million tons. I can get, you know, certain, goes through Starship, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's what's going to unfold here is pretty mind-bending. I think maybe the good news is, I say maybe the good news because I think what I'm trying to say is, we don't want sudden change because it's quite disruptive to a society. I think societies can't swallow that. We see this, we're starting to see this, I think, with this sort of political discourse. And I think it kind of is, you know, from our famous politicians, it's opportunistic, right? They jump on whatever the fear. Yeah. But what we're seeing is a measure, at least in the United States, a measure of a certain part of society who feels that inevitably they're going to be left behind. So they're starting to act like that. They're starting to, raise hell, or, I don't know, and I think that's the tear in this thing that, the balance is that you have to bring people along to a new system, and irrespective of politics. That's not even the real reason. The real reason is simply that people in general fear change. So when people say abundance, or it's just hard to swallow that, and you kind of, I think part of us, and maybe all of us, do the same thing that I do at times. I just go, well, I'll put that in a box for a rainy day. It's not on my shore. It's, I know it's out there. The ships are coming, but they're not quite here yet. So it's still sunny. And I'm not suggesting, by the way, that the inevitable reality is a cloudy day. I'm just saying, to your point, if you're living on this island and these stones are very valuable, it's going to be a disruptive change to whatever system that you've constructed.
That's right.
If these Europeans arrive with their ships.
That's right. Yeah, it's going to be interesting, isn't it? So here's another development that we should spend some time on, and that's this cursor transaction. So it's interesting because they announced back in April that they had done this deal with Cursor, that they were going to, potentially acquire them at a call option to acquire Cursor for $60 billion later in the year.
Right.
It's funny how later in the year was just a couple of months, or pay $10 billion for their work together. And then we get the announcement on June 16th that they are going to exercise their option to acquire Cursor in an all-stock transaction. So it's interesting. They are acquiring Cursor for about 10 times Cursor's projected revenue for this year.
Mm-hmm.
And you say that's a pretty healthy multiple. But then you think about what SpaceX's revenue multiple is.
Right.
Depending on your estimates, it might be 40 times revenue for this year.
All right.
So effectively, then what they're getting is Cursor at a multiple of 0.25, a quarter of their revenue, effectively, by paying with relatively speaking, inflated SpaceX stock relative to Cursor.
Yeah.
So pretty ingenious deal.
It's a great deal.
Yeah.
I mean, it isn't some coincidence that it happened after SpaceX is public.
Right. No, it was definitely well engineered, well thought out.
But you know what? The other side of that coin is, it's not the most awful deal either for the people who founded, this company. I mean, they are
right.
They have, I think they founded this company in what year? 2023.
Yeah, I don't know when it was started.
It's a damn quick exit. MIT, 4 guys from MIT, I believe.
Mm.
It's a great platform. You saw the previous show where we did the whole NetP thing that I built. Did that all with Cursor. I'm still trying to work it out. It feels to me like, I was talking to a friend about it yesterday. I said trying to understand its personality. Am I dealing with a, what's funny when you as an aside to this, when you start programming in English, so to speak, you get rid of your logical Python, C, Java, whatever, and you start programming in English, you start, being human. Like, it's like what's interesting about the English language is that it was developed for you and me to communicate. So we use all these little nuances that allow two humans to communicate. And now you're talking to an AI that isn't at all human. And yet you think of it as human. Like I'll say to it, why did you do that? That's completely stupid. and it will give it back to me by saying, yeah, that was a dumb idea. Sometimes it says it doesn't care, but I think it's a tremendous deal because I think, this gives SpaceX. I mean, if you think about AI, at least at some level, I think the biggest paid box for AI today is code-based stuff. People replacing engineers, people writing code with AIs that write code. I think a good way of saying it is that, an engineer at a company costs a company a certain amount of money. Let's say $200,000 a year. I don't know. And then in a way that engineer is doing his job, he's probably spending at least his weight in salary or 2x in token cost, either with Anthropic or Cursor. So there's real money there. My God,
So I'd like to run through a little bit, some slides here I've got for Cursor, and then maybe you can help us understand the differences between Cursor and Anthropic with the Claude Code. So we'll come to that in just a second. But this is from a presentation, I think, back in May now, I guess. Elon's saying in 2027, you won't even bother doing coding. XAI would just create the binary directly, and it can create as much more efficient binary than any compiler can. It can create optimized binary for a particular outcome, and you can actually bypass traditional coding altogether. There's an intermediate step there that probably won't even be needed by the end of 2026.
That's an interesting point because, it's sort of like you buy this thing that has this incredible value today because you basically say, hey, I've got an engineer over here. I can have him direct this thing. And then you get to a place where the necessary direction to build the thing becomes less and less. And another way of replacing that thought with something that is substantial in kind of meaning to most people would be, today you pick up your iPhone and it's filled with a bunch of applications. And there are hundreds, if not thousands. I mean, the app ecosystem for Apple is massive.
Yes.
And so there's hundreds of thousands of companies out there, small, big, large, building these applications, somewhere with one developer, sometimes with hundreds of developers. And in a sense, in a couple of years, or not even, most of that will go away. What we'll be doing is just directing our phones. I don't know what these things will be, but directing our information objects to just give us outcomes and give us information that's relevant to us situationally. And so what's the need for any of the applications? Today I think it's reasonable to talk about this because I think the thing is like today we think in applications. We almost think about the world. Like if a person listening to this podcast doesn't understand what an engineer does, like a software engineer, let's take a software engineer, and doesn't understand what that person does for like a company inside, enterprise or something like that, then just pull it out to stare at your iPhone and look at the applications on your iPhone and think about that thing that you're using, your Charles Schwab app or your stock app or your weather app or your running app, or that's all constructed by humans for the most part. Code takes, potentially man years of effort, because we would think of it that way, to build, curate, bug fix, re-release. And of course, most of these apps have massive server components as well, right?
Yeah.
But the future is purely generative. We don't even need any of that stuff. Why would we need a stock app if we just knew that the AI knew that we own 5 stocks and knew that we cared about those 5 stocks and wanted that to be information that's readily accessible and available to us at all times, right? And the beauty of that, Cern, is that the direction on those apps becomes us. We if for example you say, I don't like the way this app does it, I just want to see, here's what I want, with my SpaceX stock, I want to see a column over here that shows the float over time. I don't care about the bid and ask. Who cares about that? That's something that, people care about, but I care about the float. I want to see that. Where am I going to get that? Oh, I can find that, in some Yahoo Finance or something, but I can't put that. Like the Apple app is kind of anemic with features, right? So how would I get that? Well, I could build my own. I could do this. I could do that. But imagine the future state where you're like, yeah, something I also care about is looking at the float. Okay, great. And maybe you say, well, that's stupid. Why are you looking at the float? Because I look at the float.
Tell me how that works, Phil, where you've got something like the Tesla app for your car. Or I guess eventually just the Robotaxi app. When we get to the point where we don't own our own cars, we just use autonomous vehicles. But how does that work in an age of AI? That app still seems like that serves an important role.
Yeah, I think in a sense, curated environments that have a certain direct interface to a customer, will evolve. Like how you see the interface to your vehicle will evolve more slowly, not because the technology isn't there, but because that's how you approach the customer. It's like a customer, if you translate it to a hardware problem, can you imagine the customer walking into a Tesla showroom and the next day they see something that doesn't even look like a car, and yet they say, oh, that's still a transportation device. And now you have to understand what that means.
There's a bunch of fruit sitting there.
Yeah. You're like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
So there has to be some consistency or whatever. But what I think would be the case is, again, just like my example of information, it's like, well, yeah, but I'm in my Tesla. What do I? And then, by the way, at the point that this matters, the car drives you anyway. So all you care about on that screen isn't helping you drive the car or move the car. At that point, it's really an entertainment. And your interface to it, the need to touch the screen starts to dissipate with natural voice interface. Right now, what do we have? We have like a navigation app in the car. Even if us FSD users, we have a full map and navigation app. Now it's useful to see that because you kind of want to know where's the car going. But right now we're using it at a much more granular level than we will be in a year from now. We're concerned about if it's going to take a right-hand turn somewhere or whatever, or we keep looking at it and going, oh, I want to see ahead to where the traffic builds to a red zone. But why is that so relevant if the car makes the good and great decisions about where it navigates? So some of that information is useful, but again, it's sort of like my stock app. You can start to customize it to ideas and I think the way you would be customizing it is by saying, hey, Grok, or whatever the personality of the car becomes from an AI perspective. Hey, Grok, I really don't want to see this anymore in the navigation interface, but I do want to see this,
Yep.
Only show me, I don't know, whatever. I can't come up with an example at the moment.
The float for SpaceX.
Show me the float for SpaceX. Show me these pieces of information. And it presents something and you're like, no, I don't need that so front and center. The stuff I really care about is this. And then maybe it just rearranges things based on what you talk about and what becomes important to you. Could you imagine little windows, like you've had conversations about technology or, growing tomatoes or something, and little windows appear that, I think this is how we're going to see our so-called iPhones evolve, whatever those devices become. But then I think we also live in a world that, right now we're very fixated on the notion that a compute device presents a screen. But if I call you a compute device, you're not presenting perhaps a screen.
Right.
I can see your eyes and your mouth moving, but what's the future of compute as well? Well, maybe it's just compute with agency, something more like humanoids.
Yeah.
Where it's sort of like just direct the object to do the thing you want it to do. What what's all this information I need to see?
Less is more.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little unclear how it evolves.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in past states, we've thought of software, a lot of stuff. I remember when I was at Rivian, we did these very dynamic dashboards for the fleet, and we could subdivide the fleet in various flavors. And when I mean fleet, I'm talking about all the customer cars, or the Rivian-owned vehicles that are, used for test drives, or the Amazon vehicles used for deliveries for the delivery vans. And we could subdivide the fleet in these groupings, and we could kind of present heads-up information in these displays. And some of it was like really useful, and other pieces were just eye candy, and we didn't need to see some of that information, but we chose to put it there because it looked cool as hell. But the question would be, okay, what does the person want? What does the person, whoever it is it the CEO, comes, he's got the screen. What does he want to understand about the fleet? Does he love the eye candy we built? Maybe, but maybe he's got more probative questions that are more tuned towards having a conversation with an AI about it.
And the cool thing is you can just request on the fly what you want to see, so it just changes automatically for you.
Yeah. So let's say the CEO says, I don't care about all this garbage, but I do want to see, these are heavy vehicles, and there's some concerns in the field that tire wear is quicker than the ICE vehicles.
Yeah.
And I want to see tire wear over time by miles or something like that. And I want that to be compared to known standards in the ICE world, so I can. And the thing is, what the difference is that he's not now directing some subgroup to build changes into that interface. He's just talking to the thing itself and saying, change that so I see that. And then a week goes by and finds out that that's kind of not a thing. It's not real. It's not worth talking about. The customers maybe it's real, but the customers have stopped complaining about it. They're onto some new complaint.
Right.
So he says, get that off my screen. Now I'm interested in this other reliability problem, or, what's the 10 top things that services, and so I think we're going to see this revolution of apps largely being replaced by information we need. And to a certain extent, it will be highly visual because that's how we think of it today. But we're also used to this other modality, which is having just a conversation with another human. So you could imagine the CEO of Rivian saying to a human, I want to know this. And that human comes back and says, can I bend your ear for 5 minutes? The truth is, here's what's going on. So you can imagine that conversation happening with either an agent that's really doesn't have any embodiment, or frankly, an embodied sort of object like Optimus.
Maybe it's good that we're all used to TikTok videos and the short nature of them. that all information eventually will be presented in that way.
It's really hard to tell. I just...
Yeah. Back to the Cursor deal. So one thing it looks like is that the exchange rate is based on SpaceX's 7-day average closing price before the deal closes. So that'll be fun to keep the price up. But the other thing that's more important and more interesting perhaps is that the Cursor is used by 64% of the Fortune 500 companies. And I think it's something like 70% of the Fortune 1000. So it's like 700 companies, top companies use it. This is an interesting sort of backdoor way for SpaceX to get hooked up to the enterprise market.
Yeah, you got that right.
Right?
That's right.
With the biggest TAM of their 28 trillion TAM, the biggest part of it was at 26.5 trillion is the enterprise market. And here they are getting this company at 0.25 times revenue effectively.
Yeah.
As a Trojan horse into that.
I agree with that. And I think the other way to think about that too is today the engineering side of the world drives the specialized tool to build software outcomes, right? And now you look at an enterprise and you say, well, there's a whole portion of that enterprise that drives spreadsheets to build financial outcomes. And there's a whole other portion that drives something to build contractual outcomes. And there's, and so now take your myriad of tool chains, Photoshop's over here, and your hated CRM system is over here, and your coding system is over here. And now imagine coming out another layer and just saying, I just want to direct all that shit. I just want to direct, and not even knowing necessarily what tool chain is required on device to affect the outcomes that you're looking for. You just want an outcome. Like imagine you said, take this image and do these 5 things to it. Well, maybe you know that Photoshop can do it, or maybe you know it's DaVinci, or maybe it's some other tool that you've heard of, or maybe you're in marketing and you don't even know what that tool is. And I think we call this thing macro hard. So the funny thing about all this is you're right. I mean, in the very short term, Cursor becomes that. Well, I mean, in a sense, if Cursor becomes that sort of backdoor in, and then that tool chain, if the plan is to expand that tool chain around the tasking that it's most comfortable doing, then I think that's where you get your toehold with something like a macro hard.
Interesting, isn't it? And they've got Jensen Huang on their page talking about it. He says, my favorite enterprise AI service is Cursor. Every one of our engineers, some 40,000, are now assisted by AI, and our productivity has gone up incredibly. You've got Brian Armstrong at Coinbase and other companies extolling the virtues of it. Salesforce, 75% of the developers at Salesforce use Cursor. So, they've done a pretty amazing job. So maybe if you could just spend a few minutes and just help all of us that don't fully understand this, what Cursor actually does. And if you could talk a little bit about, too, how it's different from Claude Code and what that is.
Yeah, okay. So, one great way to understand it is just go back to our previous episode and follow through the whole demo that I did, because we did a live demonstration of Cursor in action. But let's use it. Let's talk it through in terms of just you want to develop an iPhone app, and how do you do that in the Cursor world? And so Cursor looks like nothing more than just like a prompt system. It's just like you have an input box and you type in whatever you want and you hit go, and the thing thinks and shows you the steps it's thinking about, and then it gives you outcomes. So what you do if you're building let's say you want to build your own stock application, and let's pretend you know where the data is coming from, because I don't want to get into the hard parts of it. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff here. But what you do is you basically create a project in Apple's Xcode. Actually, probably Cursor can go and do this too. I just didn't do it that way myself. Create a project in. So Xcode is Apple's, very, I don't know, we'll call it expert tool for doing code development, and the programming language is called Swift. That's the one that matters. The Objective-C is kind of dying or dead, the old style. And you go in there as a developer, and you create this project, and you start laying out the views and blah blah blah. But in the Cursor land, you run a parallel tool sitting side by side. It's a little editor thing, and you start typing what you want it to do in English. You just say, hey, let's start by building, you hit enter and the thing churns a lot. And it says, okay, I did these things. I'm done. Now you go over to Xcode and you run it. Now, Xcode becomes this really weird place because you don't stare at the code anymore. Now, I don't know what best practices would be for some engineering organizations, how much they want the engineers to have eyes on the code. But you can do the eyes off code model, which people call vibe coding, which is sort of like just keep telling the thing to refine the thing that you're trying to build. And you just keep doing it iteratively until you get the outcome you're looking for. And when I say that, I'm not saying anything that every single person listening to this, no matter what their skill level, can build an iPhone app right now using Cursor. It's actually trivial, because you can say something like, I had a really good example. I don't know if I used this in a previous conversation, but let me repeat myself. Then is sat my daughter down, engineering student. She needs to know more about AI. And I said to her, Sophie, we're going to go use Cursor to build this feature. Well, what's that, Dad? We're going to go make Cursor build a solitaire app. Okay. She has no idea what I'm talking about. She's not in the coding side. She's more in the bio side. And so I said, okay, see my app here? Okay. We're going to put a little button in the corner. And we're going to say, and so I wrote the following thing to Cursor. Hey, I want you to stick a button in the corner, in the bottom left-hand corner of my view, my main view. And I'm put a little card on it, like a playing card.
Yep. And
when you click it, I want it to open a new view that is a fully functioning solitaire application. I literally kind of wrote that. Go. Yep. 8 minutes later, 7 minutes later, whatever it was, it said it was done, and we launched it. We clicked the button. Now, I didn't know what it was going to produce, and sure enough, there was a solitaire app. But it wasn't really quite right. The cards were not really high fidelity. They had the colors are right and used the right little things. So we knew Ace of Hearts looked somewhat like an Ace of Hearts card. But it didn't have any drag, I couldn't drag, you're used to these little solitaire apps on your iPhone. You're going to drag a card into a slot. And you're like, well, wait a minute, how's this working? We didn't figure, we were like, how's this work? Oh, you just tap a card and it goes to a legal move slot, right? It kind of does the thinking for you, which sort of somewhat defeats the purpose. I don't know. Most of them do this anyway, right? Yeah. So I said, okay, now having her see this, I said, let's refine it. I want you to build drag. I want to be able to drag the cards to spots. And when I drag it to an illegal spot, I want it to snap back. The stuff we're familiar with, right?
Yes.
And if I drag it to a legal spot, I want it to stick. And, another 3 minutes later or 2 minutes later, I had my entire app. The only thing I didn't have was the fidelity of the cards, the visual fidelity. And I'm sure if I spent, if I cared, I could have built that as well. So that is literally it is literally how I did it. There's nothing to it. And having done the demo we did the last show where I wrote a much more involved application, what I would leave the audience with is that I'm still struggling with in my brain, where it's my career, professional developer for 30 something years, turned into a manager of developers for half of those number of years. And sometimes somebody who still codes and somebody who always architected, even at whatever level I was working, I was always architecting the software. I wasn't just moving people around. And so I try to say, well, where's my brain? How does my brain effectively? Well, I realized that my brain was very valuable in this because while the solitaire app is pretty trivial, some of these other applications, you need to really think about how you want to If you told it to build a house, it would build a house. You'd be like, but you forgot to put a foundation under the house.
Minor detail.
You just laid the house on the dirt.
Yeah.
Now, the beauty of something like Cursor is you can say, having really effed that up and not put a foundation, I want you to lift the house up and put a foundation, and it doesn't really care. It doesn't even think of it as much of an effort. So you have a tool that is very high agency, very high agency, but like any tool that has a lot of capability, well, this one doesn't come with complexity, right? See, the difference is it's not like, oh, you could say, well, I can do a lot of stuff in Photoshop. Yeah, but it takes 2 years to learn how to do it. This one, no. But this one, can be dangerous. It can architect the app in a way that, works great, and you ship it, and 10 days later, your users start using it and the thing falls over because it wasn't, set up right. They forgot the foundation. But it's an amazing world. And I think as I look forward in that world, I don't see the world even existing because as I said in the previous part of this conversation, where does it go? Well, it goes to the parts where I just direct something in real time to deliver the information I want. So I remove the app and I remove the friction of time, and that's some future point.
Well, to help us understand perhaps where the future is going, we have a special guest today.
We do.
Robert Scoble is going to join us here in a second. We've got his avatar here, which coincides. It looks pretty good next to ours, Phil.
It does. Now, so everyone knows he's not skiing. He's living in a virtual world with that.
That's right. Robert, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Hold on a second. You said I'm not skiing. I should get my Oakley ski goggles on, which have a little computer in them, actually.
Yeah. Okay. There you go.
There you go.
Did you understand the context of what I said? Why I said that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we were showing your little. Can you go back to that avatar?
I can.
Yeah. So there you are, Robert.
Yeah. It's actually made out of a photo Thomas Hawk took of me in San Francisco wearing the Apple Vision Pro. And somebody dressed it up like that, and I liked it.
Well, let's introduce.
It's an honor to be here, by the way.
What's that?
It's an honor to be here.
Oh, well, it's great to have you as well. Let's introduce Mr. Scoble, Robert Scoble, a man who needs no introduction. Actually, Robert, I love talking about you, but maybe you should just introduce yourself, and then when you get it wrong.
I was one of Apple's first child laborers. That's why I'm representing.
That's the part I was going to tell.
In 1978, I made Apple II motherboards in my mom's kitchen with my brothers. We would sit around watching TV and stuff motherboards, and she taught me how to solder on those Apple II motherboards, which led to an early job at HP. So I've been around, and that got me to fall in love with new things. Because back then there was no technology in my world. I mean, even the Apple II only had a tape drive; it didn't have internet, right? And the only other technology we had in our house was a black and white TV and a rotary telephone. And that got me to study new things and the people who built them all my career, which led to working in a computer programming magazine, writing 8 books about the future, interviewing thousands of entrepreneurs, and launching lots of things on my show or on my blog. Because I had a famous blog from about 2000 to 2010, where I was the first one to link to TechCrunch, Product Hunt, Tech Meme. Siri was launched in my house. Insta360 camera company, which was the first camera to use AI, was launched in my house. Last year, Matic Robot was launched in my house. The Odyssey ML company was launched on my show last year. They just got $300 million today. So life continues to be extraordinary for me, studying new things and new people, right? Yeah, and I had the first ride with Elon in the first Tesla, which is probably why you're inviting me on.
Awesome. Well, we're a little bit curious about your thoughts of what's transpired here over the last few days with SpaceX IPO. And of course, now this Cursor deal. Phil and I were just talking about that for the last hour or so, but curious about what your thoughts are and all that.
People don't realize how fast I think we're going to put data centers up in space, but I've been my dad. The reason I got moved to Cupertino back in 1971 was my dad had a PhD in electrical engineering and material science, and ended up working for Lockheed Martin. He built some of the space shuttle tiles on the space shuttle, and built the microelectronics that were in space. So my family has always been in the space business. My next door neighbor, actually in high school, ended up growing plants on the space station. So my next door neighbor is a space farmer. So it's a little neighborhood business here in Silicon Valley, right? And what's really happening, I mean, over my career, putting a pound of something up in space used to cost millions of dollars, and the price has just continued to drop and drop and drop. And Elon and SpaceX has dramatically dropped that price down to, a few tens of thousands of dollars now to put a pound of stuff up in space, and it continues to drop. And so, that let him build a Starlink and put 10,000 satellites around their Earth, because now he could affordably do that. And soon we're going to have data centers up. Well, we already have one or two or maybe more that the government has up there. I'm about to go and meet a company in Seattle that already has one up in space. But we can now see a world where there's going to be tens of thousands of small data centers running like an NVIDIA Vera Rubin chip on it up in space in a decentralized way. And that's going to make Elon even more money. So, he doesn't even need to put them up there, because one of the companies I know is building a bunch of these satellites. And I'm like, how are you going to get them up there? Oh, we're using SpaceX to get them up there. Oh, how are you going to hook them up to humans on Earth? Oh, we're using Starlink. Elon can make money even if he doesn't put any of them up there, or doesn't even own any of them, right? So,
Robert, one of the themes that we've been talking about here is the crushing reality that AI compute demand is so outsized that the only place to go is space, number one.
Yeah.
And the only path is SpaceX. And that all our friends that build frontier models have to become customers of SpaceX to succeed.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah. There will be others, but, he has a dramatic lead. And so, we talk about Jeff Bezos or whatnot, and they'll come along. But yeah, Elon's going to make a lot of money on space, and hopefully use that money to get us to explore the universe, over the next 100 years. I mean, this is not a company that should go away for 100 plus years. It should be a dramatically important company to humanity, right?
Yeah, I agree.
I'm waiting for somebody to come along and say, no, the answer is to put data centers in the oceans. But I haven't seen any kind of proposal about that yet. So,
well, the problem with the ocean is any Chinese ship with an anchor can dig up the fiber lines.
There you go.
And, I worked at Rackspace, big data center company for a while. And a truck hit our data center one time and took the data center down for a day. Wow. Yeah, so you don't have trucks up in space. You don't have nation states digging up fiber lines and cutting them, right? And you don't have the corrosive effect of salt water on your machinery, which is a problem. And it's a little hard to get up there, and it's a little hard to move around. There's no air up there, which actually gives us another advantage: free sunlight, free energy coming out of the sky. So the guys who are building the data centers, they have a solar array that unwraps in space. It's very, very thin, with a carbon fiber kind of skeletal backing to it. And then once it's unfurled, it's collecting energy for free, and you don't have to raise everybody's electric rates to pay for it, to make it run. So, and you see all the communities around the world who are resisting data centers, and nobody wants more data centers in their backyard. It's like an ugly big building, right? That raises your electric rates and pollutes if they're running a diesel generator, right?
Tell us, switching subjects a little bit here. Tell us about your relationship with Elon. Over your career, how many times have you run into him? How many conversations have you had? Does he like you? Do you like him?
I used to work at Fawcett Technical Publications in Palo Alto, and he lived like 4 doors down from our office. So the day he got his $1 million McLaren, everybody was out in the street looking at it, checking it out. I think that's the first time I really got close to Elon, But no, I got lucky. I was having dinner with Jason Calacanis, who is a famous venture capitalist now. And he's really good friends with Elon. And he said, I think Elon got his new Tesla. He got the first one off the line. And I like, wow, that sounds interesting. He goes, we should call him up and see if he'll bring it down. And I'm going, I'm in. I've been studying automotive innovation my whole career because 2 of my friends in high school got killed in car wrecks. And so I had the first ride in the Fiat 500, the BMW i3, the Mercedes AI car. I had the first video of a Waymo on the freeway on YouTube, and have many other firsts in the auto industry. And yeah, he was down in 20 minutes, and then he's like, let's go for a race. Because Jason back then had a brand new yellow Corvette. And he was like, let's go for a race. And so my partner jumped into his car and I jumped into Elon's car, and we went for a race around Santa Monica, where he demonstrated the advantages of electric motors.
Yeah, quite viscerally.
Yes. Yeah. And laid out the whole future, which is still playing out today. I mean, back then, nobody thought he was ever going to build a profitable car company. They thought this was the folly of a rich dude who was like wasting his time trying to build an electric car. I mean, General Motors couldn't do that, they gave up, And
how did you view him? Did you see him as a capable person to be able to do that? Did he speak in ways that convinced you that execution would be his path?
He won me over because the race was about proving the electric motors were fun, right? Which was the first job of selling an electric car to people. You got to make it fun,
right?
Otherwise, people are going to keep driving their Toyota or their BMW or whatever, right? And that's why he wanted to race Jason with his Corvette, and we were live streaming it on a Nokia phone to several thousand people. And the next day, I was in all the auto press. Elon and Jason had a car race, and some dude Scoville captured it. Right? I still have the pictures in the blog post. The video is gone because I was live streaming it to a streaming service that's gone now, and I forgot to get that backed up. What was extraordinary about him is he laid out how he's not building a car company for rich people. Back then, the Roadster was for rich people, right? You had to have some wealth to buy a $150,000 2-seater car that wasn't very practical and small, little sports car for rich people. But he said, I'm going after Toyota. And I'm like, how? and he said, well, electric motors have fewer moving parts than a gas motor has, and it's cheaper to manufacture eventually. And eventually it's going to lead to a cheaper product. And really, the Model 3 was the embodiment of that dream, right? That started getting the cost down to where we can get it down to Toyota level. That the Robotaxi is going to be what really turns the apple cart. And you and I all know that, but most people around the world don't understand what's about to change. If you're in San Francisco or Phoenix or someplace where there's Waymos, you're getting a taste of it, right? And you can interview I've been interviewing a lot of Waymo customers about their attitudes towards cars. And I did a lot of consumer research 15 years ago, going around America, talking about autonomous cars to understand what people's attitudes were. And everybody hated the idea. Not one person said, oh yeah, bring me one. I want to have an autonomous car. Everybody's like, Like one guy in Kansas told me, I'm a narcissistic control freak and there's no effing way a computer's driving me around. I got to be in charge. And so many people over the years have told me, I love to drive. Even today, people in some of the common areas, because one of the partners at Y Combinator was praising FSD. He just got a Tesla and he's like, I don't understand why people aren't more enthusiastic about this, right? This is a dramatic shift in what we think of transportation, and it's here, right? And people keep arguing with you. Oh, I love to drive. I don't want to trust my life to a computer chip.
What year was that when you had that funny little ride?
2007 or something like that.
Yeah. So SpaceX was 5 years into its existence. Did he say a word about SpaceX? Or
no, we didn't talk about space at all. We just talked about cars.
Right.
Talked about his $1 million McLaren and how this little electric car was faster at 0 to 60 than that, and why it was safer. We talked about brushless electric motors and why they could be turned on and off by a computer very quickly, so that. And he demonstrated this. He slammed the and we all know this story now. You slam your foot to the accelerator and the wheels don't slip. Right. Well, if there wasn't a computer controlling that, electric motor has very high torque and could just spin the wheel and slide you into a tree or something like that. Right.
How much would you say, if you're standing next to Elon and you think about some future state, right? Because people say, "Oh my God, look at this guy. He predicts these future states. He goes and builds them." Like, how far is he living in the future from you and me?
I think about 15 years.
Yeah. So you're saying he's really got the goods in that brain of his.
Mark Benioff wrote the foreword for one of my books because I got ahead of him. He's the founder of Salesforce, right? And Steve Wozniak wrote the foreword for my latest book because I got ahead of him. Can't get ahead of Elon. He's already doing brain-computer interfaces that most people find repugnant even, right? When I tell people, hey, I'm getting wires on my brain soon, they're like, what? Why would you do that? I'm like, this is not for people who are blind or paralyzed. No, it's going to bring me superpowers soon, right? And when you talk to Elon, he's like, lays it out, he's like, yeah. Here's how it's going to work.
It's our only way to, compete with AI is to become AI ourselves.
A little jacked in, yes. I already asked Elon for the first consumer one, and he's like, "That's not ready, but give me a couple of years and something will come out." He said cognitive enhancements are coming in about 2 to 3 years.
If people don't know Robert is serious. He will put those wires in his brain.
Absolutely. I've done 1,000 shows with a researcher at Unity Labs who's a brain-computer interface expert. So I know all the downsides. There's many downsides to this technology. And it takes away your free will in theory, and it listens to your inner dialogue. So it takes away any last bastion of privacy you have, because it could bring George Orwell's thought crime to bear, right? If you're thinking bad thoughts, all of a sudden the FBI could show up at the front door, So I know those problems, and right now it's expensive, right? Even the I don't know, there's 20 something people who have a Neuralink on. It's a very expensive procedure. It's a very risky procedure still. It could kill you. You have to sign a contract that, this could kill you, or this could go wrong because you're putting robots on your skull, inside your skull, and wiring up your brain. Yep. And even with all those problems, I'm like, I'm in.
Yeah. Well, I think by the time there is a consumer product, it's got to be a bit more past that stage.
Most likely it's going to be external, like a hat or glasses with a series of sensors on it. And those are coming too, not just from Neuralink, but from other companies. I've already worn some strips behind my ears, which made me lean left and right, and put a wave through my body, which was really weird. It's like they're going to mess with your brain in the future, and or your kids' brains in a whole new way. There's earmuffs coming in next year, probably, that let you think about something like 10 words like Remember This or something like that, or LinkedIn, and all of a sudden LinkedIn will pop up on your phone, something like that. And those are cute early things, but there's hats coming that have 30,000 sensors on them, and they're going to be about $500, and that'll get some consumers, and we'll see how it shifts attitudes. Right now, everybody's like, no, I'm not getting one of those. I'm not.
These are all non-invasive products, basically.
Yeah. And consumers are more open to wearing a hat than getting wires surgically implanted on your brain. Your brain. Yeah,
it's probably true.
Robert, you wrote a post here. I guess it was today about Snap and their glasses. These some of the precursor technologies to kind of get people ready for the idea of a Neuralink?
Yeah, and it makes a lot more sense when you have a display in front of you and you have an AI that can talk to you in your ears, to put a hat on to complete that loop, right? Yeah. So I think glasses are an important stepping stone into this new wearable future, you know?
Yeah, it really does make sense, right? I mean, it's just an obvious kind of way you would interface.
Yeah, it does. And I've been in the world's R&D labs where, like, Stanford University's been doing research on VR for more than a decade. And they have a lot of bag of tricks that most people don't realize that VR can do, magic for people. If you go to an Apple store and get an Apple Vision Pro on, you start seeing some of that. But when you actually live with it or actually see what it can do for education or entertainment, or building things, or running a robot, right? Yeah. So a lot of the robot industry is using things like the Vision Pro to, one, capture the data from your hands. Right. We call it egocentric data, data from your point of view of what your hands are manipulating or moving around or doing. And that's real important for training the world models that are cooking right now that'll run the Optimus or other kinds of robotics in the future.
Right.
What's your sense of where we're at right now with the humanoid robot space? There's been a ton of companies developing all kinds of different things, from full robots to just hands, and other things. What's your sense of that right now in terms of where we're at in that development phase?
Still a little early. When I talk to the people who are collecting the data, and there's companies now that are making hats with 2 cameras or 6 cameras on it, or other devices to put cameras on you somewhere, or gloves to sense, because a robot like this Diet Coke can, if it squeezes too hard, the Coke will spray out of it, right? Yeah. And if it doesn't squeeze it enough, it'll fall out of the hand and fall on the floor. So they're building gloves that have hundreds of sensors on each finger to understand how hard did we push that. When I picked up this Coke can, how much force are we putting on each finger to hold the Coke can, right? And when I talk to those kind of people who are doing this kind of work, and I ask them, when is a generalized humanoid, i.e. a humanoid that can do a lot of things in, like, the Tesla factory, like even 20% of all the jobs in the Tesla factory where it's being developed, they're mostly like 2 to 7 years, right? Somewhere in that time window. Some people say 18 months it'll be doing 20%, right? But they tend to work at Tesla and be a little bit more optimistic. So I think it's going to be a couple years before we really get to see Optimus walking around doing a variety of things safely, and interacting with us and listening to us and be able to do, the kinds of things we want to do even in a factory floor.
What do you think, enough about Apple, what do you think their future trajectory is? You happy, sad that Tim Cook is going?
Tim is, Tim made his investors, and I'm one of them, a lot of money.
Yes, he did.
And kept the company going after Steve Jobs died. And that's big shoes to fill. And he deserves a lot of credit for both of those things.
Correct.
He's not the kind of guy that makes me excited about new things, you know. I mean, he goes to the Formula One track and waves the flag, and he doesn't get me excited about that. You know, I mean, you know, he's not the guy to get me excited about things. You know, so they needed new leadership that could bring them into this new world of robots and spatial computing devices and wearable computers that are, let's be honest, are very freaky to consumers. I have it's outside, but I have a little wearable camera from a Chinese company called Looky. And that's very freaky, you know, for most people. It's like, why would you wear a camera 24 hours a day and, you know, and be recording everything? You know, it doesn't record everything, but it records,
enough, yeah.
you know, enough that it's on your chest and it could record right now, right? And Apple needs somebody to get us excited about that.
Did they pick the right guy?
I'm very bullish on Turney. I hear from inside Apple, he's an engineer. He doesn't play politics. He understands the new technology. He worked on the Vision Pro, so he understands 3D technology. You know, and so I'm bullish. But you know, he has a big problem at Apple because they're not seen as a real innovator in AI. That's starting to change with the new Siri, but they're behind. Let's be honest. They're behind the OpenAIs and the Anthropics and Google. They're using Google as the back end for the new Siri, right? Whether they distilled the models and made their own out of Google, and it's still Google state models that really are running it. And so he has big shoes, you know, and he has to have some hits of his own and figure out, you know, are they going to make a Vision Pro style glasses, and how are they going to sell that to people, and how are they going to finish it off to make it cheap and lightweight, you know, because if they're not cheap and lightweight, the consumer is going to ignore them. Do
you think they picked him because hardware has been the shining star of Apple for the last couple of years and software has been not so much so?
I think they know that spatial computing is the future of a whole raft of products that could come out of Apple. Mm-hmm. And they needed an engineer that the engineers would work with and trust, right? And somebody who came out of that kind of field of 3D computing rather than just working on, you know, Apple Mail or something like that on the 2D screen, right? Right. And so he has the credibility to lay a path out for the future. And, you know, and he has enough AI experience to be credible about picking what projects to do and how to talk to the researchers who are working on AI. That, you know, I think it's as good a pick as they could make. You know? I
mean, we knew they would pick somebody from the inside. That's just what Apple does. So yeah, it had to be. I mean, it was not even really much of a surprise to most people, I guess, right? You know, it's like three guys.
No, he was set up there, but you know, they could have made a lot worse choices, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
There's a lot of people there that are very political, and he's not. I've talked to several people who's like, no, this guy's straightforward. He's an engineer. He talks to you like an engineer, and he understands the technology. And so I think that's a great choice for the future of taking Apple into this new future, which they're going to struggle with robots, right? They can't do a humanoid robot for a lot of reasons, at least not quickly, right? They might buy their way in. They might, you know, come in years after Tesla figures out, or Figure or 1X or whoever figures out how to do a humanoid robot. They're not going to be quick. I've talked to their lawyers there. They said, no, it's too big a risk for Apple's risk profile, because they're so rich that any problem, any robot that falls on a kid or breaks a TV is going to cause a lawsuit, you know, and cause a major PR problem. They're almost in the same place as the traditional automakers were like 12, 15 years ago. I mean, I give talks to Mercedes engineers in Sunnyvale, R&D facility. And this was right after the Model S came out, which was the first software-defined car, right? And electric vehicle. And I'd be like, why do you guys have a knob between the seats? Why don't you have a touchscreen? Oh, our executives in Germany, they don't want fingerprints on the glass. They invested so much in the dash, and they don't want that. Well, what about and this was long before we started thinking about autonomy, really. Well, they were thinking about it, but what about a computer that would download and upload all the time and improve itself, right? That's a huge advantage of a Tesla. I mean, all of our cars get better every few weeks, and get new features. I mean, since buying my Model 3, my acceleration's improved, my stereo sound system's improved, my headlights have improved, obviously FSD is dramatically better, right? My brakes have improved, all because the whole car is software defined. It's run by software.
Right.
And that means you got to upload and download from the computer in the car. Oh, our German executive, we have that in the lab, but this was 12 years ago. But our German executives are scared of getting hacked, right? And Tesla hasn't been hacked. They've done a lot of efforts to make it very resistant toward hacking, right? From taking cars to the hackers conferences and paying hackers to try to hack the car to building systems that really are double checking each other, the work that's going on. If FSD tells you to turn left and the sensor said the car turned right, that tells you something has corrupted the system, right? And so they built a lot of systems like that. And we haven't heard of a Tesla getting hacked in a very public way, right?
What's your perspective on why Apple failed with Project Titan?
I was standing next to an Apple employee at the 1010 event last year or 2 years ago. And he was like, well, we saw the Cybercab and we knew it was over. They don't have the ability to make a vehicle that cheap, that efficient, with that kind of brand, with that kind of manufacturing process. They just didn't have any of that. The real reason I hear is they went to a lot of automakers looking for a partner to make their vehicles, and they all turned them down because Apple needed all the data. And automakers, they don't like to give up their data. This is why Tesla hasn't been licensed by a Ford or a General Motors, which is going to doom them, really going to doom them. I mean, you saw the Rivian, right, is a new Silicon Valley innovative company. Great fucking product. The new R2. I think you bought one, right, Phil?
I will buy one. Yes.
But
I think next week, by the way.
The autonomy in that thing is a piece of shit, and it's way better than anything Ford or General Motors has, right? Or VW or BMW or Toyota.
Because it's really, really hard to do.
This is where Mercedes gave up, right? Mercedes knew how to do it. They had it in the labs. I had the first ride in the first Mercedes AI car with cameras on it and an NVIDIA card in the trunk. The executives killed the project because they didn't want to spend the $6,000 per car retail to sell it to consumer that doesn't know why. 12 years ago, nobody knew why you needed a $6,000 package. Right. I spent $6,000 on my Tesla package to get FSD because I knew what was coming. And a few people did in line. I interviewed the first 100 people standing in the Danville line buying the Model 3. And a few people were there. I'm buying a Model 3 to get the best AI car possible, right? So there's a few nerds in Silicon Valley who are like, this is coming. I want to participate in it. But the average Mercedes or General Motors customer, they have no fucking idea what that is, right? And didn't want to spend it. And the executives couldn't put the budget to increase the price of their product, $6,000, to put the cameras and the computer in the car. And they were scared of getting hacked and all that. Mm-hmm. So they all gave up. I mean, Volkswagen has its name on the building where Waymo started, right? They sponsored the autonomous car project at Stanford University, which is where Waymo started. There was somebody at VW who understood that's the future of transportation, but they couldn't get the budget allowance to put the cameras and And that's what it takes to do what Tesla did, get a fleet of 10 million vehicles out on the road with cameras and an AI computer in it to collect the data, to build the world models, to start self-driving, make the robot work. In the robotics industry here, everybody in the robotics industry talks about the Tesla data flywheel.
Yeah.
And that's what Elon did by being a new entrant to the car industry. He was able to say, hey, anybody wants a Tesla, you got to pay $6,000 more, and probably $12,000, right? Because he put cameras and an AI computer in every car, whether you bought FSD or not. Right. And then he charged us an extra $6,000 to turn it on, right? And it was shitty for years until just recently. Right now, it's starting to get really good. Right?
You know what's super interesting? I'm listening to you talk about auto, and what's interesting about your perspective, and it's completely correct, I think, is you talk about labs who have some fundamental technology who can't convince the executives, right? And it reminds me that as you were saying that, I just kept thinking to myself, it's all about leadership. It's like when you think about why did Tesla do this? Because Elon said, this is what I am doing. This is what we are doing. I mean, he just directed it. And the idea that, some Mercedes executive didn't want someone to touch this or didn't feel or thought that was too risky or whatever the ball of things are, they didn't direct the company to do the thing that it should have done. So the problem is nobody, in all these companies, all these institutionalized legacy companies, it is really hard for anybody in some level of middle management to ever break out and convince the company to do something new.
It's a generational thing too. I mean, all the executives at all the traditional automakers are our age, right? They grew up changing carburetors on their cars back in the 70s, right?
Right.
And they have skills with machining and materials and stuff like that. They don't have the computer expertise.
Right.
They aren't in Silicon Valley understanding the technology. And it's not Mercedes that's first. Remember Xerox PARC, right? Xerox had the exact same problem. The executives in New York funded an R&D lab here in Silicon Valley. But then when the R&D lab started developing along and building some interesting technologies for use in the office, the executives were like, we don't want to turn that on. It's going to kill our copier business, right? And the leadership is generational in a way. It also is, I study companies that fail going through paradigm shifts, right? And we could talk for hours about these examples, but it's the customer that's a noose around their neck as well. And most of these people are incented to increase profits every year, every quarter, right? And not spend a lot of money of new R&D in the car. This is why they refuse to put $6,000 in every car. Because if you're a Volkswagen making 1 million cars a year, that's just too hard to do, to wrap your head around, particularly if you're a CEO that's more of a finance kind of person, right?
You said something interesting too, which comes back to leadership. You said the customer kind of creates this noose around their neck. And, it's sort of like how Jobs would never do it, right? Jobs would be in a circumstance where he'd say, I'm going to tell that customer what he needs next, right? But I look at I know that people that own BMWs are used to that layout and that BMW that way. They want it this way. And they're the noose on corporate. And corporate's like, well, we're not going to change this because that customer is going to buy my next BMW. Yeah. And the problem with that thinking is it eventually stops, because that customer eventually, no disrespect, dies. It's like there's no new customer coming along.
I have many examples of humans change when you show them something new, and they get used to the new thing, right? Yeah,
they do.
I mean, how many people gave me shit when I first got I was the first one to buy an iPhone at Steve Jobs' store. People yelled at us in line, why are you buying a stupid ass phone, right? And then other people would be like, I can't use that. It doesn't have buttons. I want my BlackBerry with a keyboard, right? And the same thing is happening with auto industry, right? I had lots of arguments with the Mercedes people about buttons. I was like, why are you putting buttons everywhere? You know, the knob between the seats, the buttons. Because our executives did customer research and found that everybody left buttons. In fact, Ford had me go around America studying the consumer. And sure enough, they do love buttons. They'll tell you.
And why do they love buttons? Because they know buttons.
Well, it's also tactile, right?
Right.
There's something. One guy told me, I'm a farmer. I don't like touchscreens. I don't like an iPhone. I have a flip phone with keys on it because I like to touch things. And I want to be able to push the button on my stereo and get to my religious radio station, he told me, right? And that's that was the prevailing customer belief that buttons are the way to go. And people still argue about this today, even, right? It's like the Tesla screen's not safe for driving because you got to touch a screen and look at it. You can't feel where the button is.
Look, you know what? When I was first at Rivian, I was in charge of all of interface in the car, but that meant glass. It meant touchscreen. It didn't mean anything else. And we really had defined a buttonless environment largely. Now there's more stalks and kind of control buttons in a Rivian than maybe a Tesla, because Elon's more of a minimalist when it comes to that kind of stuff. But, I can tell you this, even with good executive sponsorship, RJ wanted what we wanted. I fought every single day. Like every single day, I was like writing memos about why we didn't need a button. And you know what? It's really hard to make that case because everybody's like, yeah, but it's a off-road vehicle and you're jostling up and down. And so your finger's going to do like this on the screen. And then you had to kind of shoehorn false arguments in there, not like you're lying, but you're sort of like, well, the truth of the matter is, in some point, you're going to stop touching the screen and start talking to the car. Yeah. And then you don't give a shit about buttons, right? Because you're just going to tell the car, do this, do that. We were just talking about that before you showed up. So, but you defend these things. And it's like one of the things I had to defend at Rivian is, why do you want this big of a screen? Like, what are you going to use all those pixels for? It's too costly. You only need a screen this big. And every one of us has been in a car that has a screen this big, like the last generation of all those BMWs that had those little shit screens.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like, you just go, are you kidding me? Like, look what's wrong with this. It's so obvious, right? So I'd end up writing memos saying, here's how we're going to use the screen real estate. All the time, knowing that this is a completely stupid false argument, because it's like, wait a minute, we have all this real estate because we're going to do some magical shit in the future with it. I can't tell you the future state of all those pixels, but I can tell you that we will use them. I promise you.
I can, if your car is self-driving on the freeway with your kids in the car and you have a big fucking screen in front of you, you're going to find something to do with those pixels, watch a movie or play a video game.
Look at the size of the
or see information about the things going by, using a multimodal model. Hey, there's our museum over there. Here's what's inside the museum. Put it on the screen,
I mean, look at Cybercab, right? Big effing screen.
Yeah, because if we're going to be watching a lot of movies and doing a lot of video calls like this in our cybercabs,
Exactly.
Among other things, building software with the kids in the backseat.
So speaking of cybercab and Robotaxi, Robert, I'm curious about what your perspective is in terms of Tesla's rollout strategy. Are they intentionally slowing that down for some reason? Is it a liability issue? Are they still needing to get the software where it needs to be? What's your perspective on all that?
If I was Elon, I'd wait until I had 2,000 in parking lots.
Yeah.
And then I would turn on Robotaxi. and all of a sudden, one day you don't see any gold cars rolling around Austin, Texas. And the next day you see a fuckload of them rolling. Right? And that'll get everybody's attention on Robotaxis here, right? That's what I'd be doing. I think that's what's going on. Now, there might be, the FSD might need another update or two. So he's going to store them until it's perfect. And the lawyers check the boxes and say it's ready to go and it's safe enough to put on the road.
Yeah.
And it won't cause traffic jams or anything like that, because you put 2,000 new cybercabs into Austin. That's going to change the traffic pattern, right?
A little different.
and you don't want to cause any PR problems. You want it to work itself out real quick, right? And so are they holding it, make sure it's perfect and won't cause PR problems? There might be some of that too, but it makes sense to me. Store them in the parking lot until you can turn on a whole fleet all at one time. And one day there's just going to be 2,000 of them rolling around Texas.
Yeah, that makes its own story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And invite Omar and Sawyer and you and everybody down to Texas to get the first ride. So we take some Instagram videos and do some YouTube videos and get everybody riled up. Oh, Robotaxi just turned on today, right?
Yeah, there is
Robotaxi scaling.
By the way, when we see that parking lot, where is that parking lot that's already
I don't know. Sawyer has pictures.
Yeah, he did, right?
Yeah, Tegmeyer.
I think that, from Joe Techmeyer, it's the outbound lot at Giga Texas.
Oh, okay.
Where they stage the cars to go in the trucks that transport them away.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, there'll be a few of them in parking lots around America, is my prediction.
Well, I mean, I noticed they keep making them.
Yeah. And
they don't have to do that unless they want. There's a reason.
Well, I bought the 7,409th Model 3 made in the Fremont factory. That was made 6 months after the factory line started up. So we're into about 3, 4, 5 months right now, right? Yeah. So this is a slower ramp at the beginning, but this process that they're using to make this vehicle is going to be faster than the Model 3.
Right, exactly.
So by the end of the year, I won't be shocked if there's 10 to 20,000 of these things on the road, right? And certainly next year, you're going to see that. You're going to see the Model 3 number, right, which goes like this, and the Cybercab number should pass it right by and go faster. Mm-hmm. Right? Because it's easier to make one of these vehicles. It's not made on a long line. It's made all in place with modules that are made elsewhere. So when they get that process rocking, they're going to be able to make a lot more vehicles every day than a Model 3 line can make.
Right. Yeah, no, exactly.
And they can expand it easier.
It's a funny thing about vehicle ramp is it is a ramp. It goes slow, but then once it cooks. Yeah. And so your point, there's a certain amount you can cook with a Model 3. It's only like it's limited out, right? It's reached its
you're limited by the paint shop.
Yeah, exactly.
There's only so many cars that thing can paint every day.
Right. You have some limiting factor unless you build 2 of them or whatever, right? But we're nowhere
to build 2 of them. So
we're nowhere near
in the
that.
Fremont factory, you were limited. That kept. I mean, they had to build cars out in the parking lot in a tent. Right? People forget that.
That's right. Like, hey, I need more space. I don't know. Let's go build a big circus tent in the parking lot.
Yeah,
sure. Why not?
Why not? It's California. It doesn't rain too much.
Yeah, it doesn't rain.
In terms of the overall AI space right now, Robert, what do you think people are missing or not seeing right now with all the hype around so many different things? What's underhyped right now in AI?
Voice technology is getting better and better every day. I just interviewed somebody who cloned my voice in 3 seconds on Saturday, right? And he said that wasn't possible 3 months ago.
Wow.
World models are cooking really quick. These new world models can create video. So let's talk about world models. Tesla is sort of a world model company, right? You take a bunch of video, you throw it through a bunch of NVIDIA cards and out spits a world model that understands the world. And it's different technology than a large language model, which you take all the world's language, books and magazine articles and blog posts and Facebook posts and shove it in NVIDIA cards and out spits a large language model. Large language model can understand the world a little bit. I mean, I was walking around Disneyland and it was telling me where the Matterhorn was from where I was standing. And so it had some understanding of the world that way, but a world model would really understand it. And the world model then can create a video, right? And we're seeing that like Kling or, a whole bunch of them. It can also be used to train robots. And that's that genre of AI technology is getting more and more important over time, right? World models or BLAs or whatever you call them. But understanding of the world data, physics, or video is real important, and most people don't know what that is yet, right? So,
right. Oh,
autonomous cars are still not understood by most people. I mean, if you took all the customers of Tesla, Waymo, Zoox, Zeekr, Neo, BYD, whoever has an autonomous car over in China and in America, and you put them all together, you have less than 10 million people who've had a ride in one out of 8 billion people. So we're at the beginning of adoption of autonomous vehicles. And that's a robot, right? I think robots are going to catch people unaware. Maybe not your listeners, because you talk about Optimus a lot, but normal everyday people, they're not paying attention.
One of the fun things I do all the time is, like, in my local market right down the street, I'm not lazy. I promise you, I summon the car just to see reactions.
Yeah.
And there's some really outsized reactions when some people are just oblivious.
See a car rolling by. Hey, yeah. Marge, there's a car going by with nobody in it. What the hell's going on here?
I had more than one of those experiences. I do it all the time just to see, and what I really need to be doing is I need to be videoing the experience just to get something out of it, because it's so darn cool. And some people are completely oblivious. They don't even know it's happening. Other people look over and they are like, oh my God. Like, I think they think there's something, the car ran away. But to your point, I agree with you completely. Like, we are used to seeing Waymos in downtown San Francisco, right?
Yeah.
But if you go to Cincinnati, or you go to, name your other, whatever, next 50 cities, this stuff is not there. People don't know about this. What's that?
Dubai.
Yeah, I don't know about
it. With all the money, right? And they don't have it.
Right? Yeah. So you're right about that. It's like, imagine really Optimus doing something in the public. Imagine Optimus really being put to work at Starbucks. How much of a mind F that would be for a lot of people walking in there.
Wait until one's waiting behind you in the line to go to the Starbucks. Like, hey, I'd like a latte, a grande latte. With some.
What are you doing? I'm getting it from my owner, of course, who's sitting in his Tesla doing nothing.
Or even better, when the robot taps you on the shoulder and says, "Excuse me, sir. It's my turn now."
Yeah.
It's a weird future coming at us.
So having totally switching to another company here. What do you think the future of Microsoft is? By the way, Robert has a long history with Microsoft.
Yeah, I was a public face of Microsoft and interviewed 600 people there when I worked there. They have a lot of data centers, so they're not going away. They have a lot of enterprise users. A lot of people still use Microsoft Office, or whatever they call it now, Office 365. A lot of people use their developer tools to build things still. When I worked there, they had $14 billion businesses, and I couldn't even name them all. Like, Microsoft Dynamics runs supply chains, right? And you got Xbox that's being rebuilt, and that'll come back as a brand, hopefully. You got Office, you got SQL Server running things. All sorts of different Visual Studio. You got all sorts of different businesses in there. They're struggling in this AI world. They look like they were really getting a clue because they did the investment with OpenAI and seemed like they were really going to make a corner turn on this. And they still have a lot of. It's really hard to change software at Microsoft. I saw this from the inside, right? If you want to change how Microsoft Office works, you have to have 100,000 meetings, right? And that just slows them all down. And so if you say, hey, we got to start over with Office and rebuild it from scratch for the AI world and make it all AI and get rid of all the old code and start afresh and
good luck with
come up with a new idea. That's really hard. And it's the story we were talking about with Tesla and Ford and Volkswagen. It's really hard to start over with a clean slate. And That's one reason Elon has had a lot of success, because he comes in with a new car company that had a clean slate. He didn't have to do things the way that they've been done, and he didn't have to argue with a bunch of pointy-haired bosses who were going, I cannot spend $6,000 per car because we make 1 million cars a year and we can't afford that, you know?
Right.
Man, if Volkswagen had done that, Tesla wouldn't, they'd have Robotaxi, right?
So handicap Google versus Microsoft.
Google has all my data. they have my email. I'm looking at Gmail right now. They have my calendar. They have my contacts. They have my photos. They run my TV. I have a new phone, a new Pixel phone that somebody gave me, which actually we should talk about that. Hold on a second. This new phone gets rid of the Android user interface. It's all run by AI.
Geez, what were we talking about a second ago, Cern?
Yep.
Right. And now, what does this represent in terms of disruption?
Yeah.
Because there's no app store. They make a lot of money on apps. They have a lot of developers who want to have you stuck in their little prison, the Uber and the Minecraft and the Gmail and the TikTok and the Facebook and the WhatsApp. You're stuck in little prisons, tiny prisons on your screen. This gets rid of the prisons, and now you just deal with an AI, which all that stuff is still loaded underneath, but the top has changed. And this is going to be the disruption that's coming. And Google knows it. I talked to a Google executive working on Android. He's like, yeah, that's coming. We know that's the future, but are we going to be able to change fast enough to keep the disruption from happening? Because Elon could come out with an AI phone, right? And say, hey, Tesla now is shipping an AI phone. It doesn't look anything like your old Apple phone or your old Android phone.
Right.
It's like a tricorder. You just talk to it and it does stuff for you. You need a ride somewhere, you just tell Grok, hey, Grok, I need a ride.
Connect to the Starlink infinitely and always.
Right. Mm-hmm. And there's an opening now for somebody to come and use this kind of technology to disrupt what a phone is and rethink the phone from scratch. Right.
That's literally what we were talking about before you joined the conversation.
There we go. I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Minds are melding here.
That's right. The vector we came through that door was trying to talk about how we build apps with Cursor, and me making the argument, well, it's super interesting we're building apps with Cursor, but in a couple of years or even less, we won't be building apps with Cursor. The user will just be experiencing information gathering through their phones naturally, which is sort of what you are kind of showing there, right?
Yep. That's exactly what I'm showing there. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
You just talk to the phone. Hey, I want a fun game. Make it like chess and mix in a little Minecraft. It'll just build you something fun and be playing it with the kids, That'll be a fun thing to do in Tesla someday, right? The kids will be in the backseat on a long road trip and they'll be like, hey, I want to play a new video game and make it like this and this and this. And, and take a couple minutes to compile it all. And
which is cool because it allows the kid to get back to building something.
Yeah.
In other words, part of it is I'm going to go build the thing again. So many kids have gotten away from the beauty of that. Or the coolness of cool factor.
Or build a movie, of your road trip, and be taking pictures out the window and sticking that into Grok, and Grok makes some film out of your whole experience.
Yeah, in a sort of meaningful and potentially different way than you would just think of it as a straight line. So, okay, I have an agenda here, so I have one more question.
Okay,
my agenda was to get you through the Mag 7. Tell me what you think of Meta.
Meta's a mess internally. They have 3 billion users on a variety of services. Yeah, they have us addicted to that. Instagram, WhatsApp, Facebook, that kind of thing, Messenger. And so that's not going away quickly. Yes, Zuckerberg has invested a lot in augmented and virtual reality and understands that future, and they're going to have some interesting products. But it's not the company I see leading me into the future. It doesn't make me feel. It doesn't make it. I just spoke at Edge Esmeralda, a big little conference with 400 nerds at it, and everybody was like, Facebook is bad for the world. And nobody spoke up for him and said, no, this is good for the world. It's not like we talk about SpaceX and Tesla.
Right.
You know, the community, when we talk on Tesla Spaces every night, this is a good company for the world. It's going to lead to a world with fewer deaths on our freeways and better experiences and better products. We don't feel like that about Meta. So with glasses, which are very, you have to be thinking about fashion with products with computers on your face. They do have Oakley, they do have Essilor, they have the ability to make them,
right?
But they don't have the belief, and belief drives everything. And then internally, I just hear over and over from employees who work there that it's just a mess. They're just not strong leadership. There's bad juju inside. That doesn't tend to lead to beautiful products.
Yeah, probably.
I don't hear that about Apple. Apple people have complaints about working at Apple or things here and there, but you don't hear that it's a mess internally. It's like, oh yeah, it's fun to work there, right?
Yeah. And
Tesla or SpaceX or other companies, you don't hear about that. And then what are we going to do with a screen on our eyes, right? Now, Google has all my data, and it's the data that matters in this AI world.
Yeah.
And so where's the utility going to match Google? So I'm planning on buying the Google glasses because I can see that those will have utility that let me look at my photos or work with my photos, watch YouTube, work with my email, right? Mm-hmm. I don't have my photos on Meta. I don't have my videos on Meta. I don't have my email on Meta. I don't have my calendar on Meta. Meta doesn't run my TV, right? So how are they going to compete with Google on utility?
Yeah.
And then Apple will come in late, like they always do, and they'll have everything. Apple has all my data too. I'm talking to you on an Apple computer, right? So they can see my email and my calendar and my contacts, and they can do a lot of things there. And they have fashion, and they have the most trusted brand. Why? Because they didn't steal all of our private shit to make the models, right? Which put them behind. but because they're behind, they can do things right and get the consumer excited about things, right? And
yeah, I feel the same way about Meta. I'm like, I don't get it. I think the crown jewel is the Instagram app that kind of feels like, okay, it'll have its day. It's there.
But when you're wearing cameras and you're going into a spatial computing world, in other words, from a pixel world, because right now I'm talking to you and you're pixels on a 2D screen, right?
Right, exactly.
What if you're standing around me or sitting at a table in a 3D world and you're all voxels?
Right.
Well, Mark understands that's the future. That's why you invest. That's why you changed the name of the company.
Changed the name
to Metaverse, right? And Meta, right?
Exactly.
And so he understands that's coming, but his executive team doesn't have the leadership to lead us into that new world for many reasons. They grew up in a 2D world. I walked around with Zuckerberg a couple times for hours at the World Economic Forum, and I've talked to many of his executives going to early press conferences of his. A lot of his early executives, or people who joined the company, were in their 20s when the company was just getting hot, right? They didn't have real jobs, and they came of age in a 2D world. Well, now there's other companies like Niantic or whatever who are coming, or Tesla, who are coming of age in a 3D world, a world model world, right? An AI world.
Yeah, it's a good way of, I like that.
And if you're a world model person, do you want to go to Meta? No, you want to work for Fifi Lee, who's running World Labs, or some new company that's just about to go public, right? An OpenAI, an Anthropic, right? You don't want to work at Meta. Your stock's not going to do anything. You go to OpenAI, and there's a good chance that OpenAI has the same success that SpaceX has in the IPO market and sees a run-up, right? And also, if you get gifted stock as an employee, you get pre-IPO shares, so you're going to get a run-up anyways, right?
Right.
You know, in other words, your compensation is going to be pretty nice. And so you're not going to go to Meta if you're a world model AI thinker.
You got an economic drag, but you also have this sort of, where do you want to work as a, where do you want to work? And
Meta is perceived as a cigarettes company.
Yeah.
Right? Like they over-indexed on addiction. They're really good at addicting us. Okay.
Right.
But they don't make you feel good about being addicted. It's sort of like a cigarette company.
Perfect. Yeah.
Right? You might be addicted to nicotine or social media, but you're not feeling good about it. You don't feel good about it like you feel about Apple or about Tesla or SpaceX, right? SpaceX is going to Mars, man. That makes you feel warm feelings about the company.
Right.
So, Robert, in a world of AI agents where you're essentially going to be trusting AI with all your data, who has that trust? For you, it sounds like Google does.
Google has a piece of it because they haven't hurt me by giving it all of the data, right? Yeah. They've been a fairly good steward. It's not a sexy company. A lot of people don't trust Google. They're scared about Google because they have all of my data. But it's not an aspirational brand. It's sort of like Amazon. It's like a utility company. It's like the power company almost. We all use it and trust it, but we don't feel good about it. We feel better about it than we feel about Meta, but we don't feel warm feelings. It's not a fashion brand. This is going to be a hard problem for Google because they don't have a brand that we want to wear on our face.
Right.
They have Warby Parker, but Warby Parker is like these glasses, I just bought them last weekend. These are 0G glasses with Carl Zeiss lenses. These cost $1,500. They don't have any digital technology in them. They're titanium. They're light. They're sort of fashionable. They're as fashionable as you can make a piece of glass in front of your eyes. They don't have that.
Right. Yeah.
And, while I'm going to buy the Google Glass, I'm buying it for utility, not for fashion, right? I still assume the Google ones are going to be dorky looking and haven't built the brand to make it a fashion statement to wear it. Right. It's a nerd statement to wear it. And so,
that's why I think we were left with the inevitable conclusion that Apple has a door here.
They do that. They know it. This is the problem with Apple. They know they can come in years late and still change the market because that's what they do. They were not first to personal computers. There was other personal computers out there before the Apple II came out, right? The Altair and others.
No, I was just saying that from my perspective, it's like, that's why I ran you through this whole brands and companies, because I was trying to think about, where is Apple eventually?
They can come in late is where I was going.
Yeah, and they tend to do that, and they can do that effectively, but they also got to watch their back, because I wonder if that, it's like I constantly, some people will sit here and say, the best thing in the world was that they didn't go and waste their money and time on a foundational model. And then there's other people who say, well, that's just an outcome of the fact that they couldn't execute.
The real competition is going to come out of China, because China for decades was about copying America, right? And we're making American brands. They love American brands over in China. Don't get me wrong. They really love American brands. But now the kids who grew up, their parents were working in the factories to make the American brand, or doing that. The kids
I know what
like,
you're going to say.
fuck the man. I'm going to start my own company. I'm going to build my own brand, my own thing. And I'm going to war with the Apples and the Teslas and all that.
Yeah.
And that's a shift in Chinese entrepreneurial society that I'm watching quite closely. And that's paying fruit for China. They don't need to copy the American brand anymore. Right. They can do it themselves. They built DJI and Insta360 and a whole bunch, and Xiaomi.
That's true.
And Huawei. And now there's a new crop of companies, and this new crop of companies can take a fresh approach to glasses and autonomous cars and robotaxis and humanoid robots, Unitree and XPeng. I mean, XPeng, you should go back and watch the slide deck of their presentation. They only had one American brand on it, and it was Tesla. And the founder of XPeng wants to be Elon Musk. and so he's going after Elon. He's like paying a lot of respect to Elon, but he wants to be Elon. So that's where the competition's coming. Right. And for Apple's, that's certainly true. The competition for glasses and for wearable cameras and for robotics and for the future of consumer electronics is coming out of China for a lot of reasons. And they can underprice Apple because they can make things so fast and so cheaply and innovate in a way that Apple can't, because anybody from Silicon Valley who wants to build something in China has to fly there. I heard this personally from the guy who runs design at Harman. Harman moved its design center to Shenzhen, China. And he said they started winning awards, they started iterating faster, and they started seeing customer sat numbers going up on their products. And he explained it. When we have all of our designers for our products in Shenzhen, they just walk across the street to the factory. And so in the morning, they could come up with an idea for a speaker or something like that, because they made speakers and dash units for Toyota and stuff like that. They can walk across the street to the factory and ask the factory guys, hey, can you make this new weird ass speaker? And they would go, yeah, we can't do that, but we could do that. Can you redesign this, right? And then you go back in the afternoon, fix all the problems, and then at night they're building the speaker. The iteration cycle, and Elon knows this. If you can iterate faster, and in fact, this is, I think, why he closed the S and X line in Fremont, because he needed the Optimus, people who are building Optimus, to be right next to the car line, so that they could test Optimus, put it in the factory to make the car, see if it would work. If it didn't, they would go back in the afternoon and rebuild the world models or rebuild the hands or whatever they have to rebuild to make that Optimus good enough to work in the factory floor. So he gets this iteration cycle faster and faster and faster until the product comes out and he can, Coca-Cola can use it in their factories or whatever. Right. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I know. Totally.
Yeah. It's what we do in Silicon Valley. We innovate in factories, and then we shift the factory over to China and make it scale.
Absolutely.
All righty.
Well, Robert, thank you very much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks. I learned a few things from you guys because you're in it.
Yeah, we're in it. We're in it, all right.
You're in it. Well, you ran Rivian. That was good insights on how hard it's so disappointing to hear that, because it's like you have an innovative new Silicon Valley company. Everybody should be like, fuck buttons from the get-go. They shouldn't even have an argument. You should be the one arguing for the buttons to come back. Oh, we actually do need a button for this,
There's so many ways companies, materially move through their life cycle. And I think that was a period when we brought in the McLaren people. Yeah. So a good portion, and one of the guys who was my boss, Mark Vanells, that was a world he came from. I love Mark, by the way. He unfortunately passed away from Lou Gehrig's disease, but really great guy, but probably shouldn't have been the guy running, trying to run on software, because he was really from the other
Button
side.
Land.
Yeah.
Carburetor world.
But But that's, it's what it is.
It is what it is. But Steve Jobs, when he started up the iPhone team, told his employees, you're not allowed to hire anybody who's worked on a phone.
Yeah, well,
right. To get this kind of different thinking. Andy Grignon is one of the 12 guys who worked on the phone, told me a story. He said, because he was the guy who pitched AT&T on visual voicemail, a key feature in the first iPhone. And when he pitched AT&T this thing, he said, they flew into Cupertino. The CTO of AT&T was there. The whole engineering team was there, did our song and dance showing off this feature. The CTO, he said, basically came over, petted me on the head and said, I'm never going to do that for you. And he said, he cried to Steve, and Steve took care of the problem, Steve Jobs. Well, I worked at Rackspace and heard, and we had the former AT&T CEO give us a speech one day. So I stuck up my head and said, I've heard this story from the Apple side, but I don't know what Steve did with you to get you to do the feature, because obviously the feature exists. So it got built. And he goes, right. Oh, I love that feature. I got a 5-year exclusive deal for that one feature, and that shows the magic of Steve, where he can decide to make a deal like that on one feature because it's so important to Steve, to his vision of what the product would do. And he wanted it built that he would give up 5-year exclusive deal to AT&T to get that feature built. Right. And that's the power of Elon too, right? Elon can make those kinds of bets or those kinds of negotiations, in a way that nobody else. I can't call up the head of any company and make a deal like that.
It just shows how difficult change is and how, really special Elon is for being able to bring all the changes he does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody's against the man. The astronauts were against him, the venture capitalists. I mean, when he gave me the first ride in the first Tesla, I came back to Silicon Valley and I got a cool ride in the new first Tesla. What do you think of this company? Everybody's like, no, that's a rich man's folly. He's going to lose all his money. There's no way he's going to take on Toyota or General Motors or change the world about transportation. General Motors couldn't build an electric car. Neither can he, blah, blah, blah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. We forget those days.
It's an exciting feature. Yep.
We are heading into a new feature. Go Robotaxi. I want my Cybercab, Elon. Call me up.
There you go.
I want my Neuralink more accurately. Give me that. That Cybercab will happen.
Perhaps the Cybercab can take you to your Neuralink appointment to get the Neuralink.
Yeah.
Well,
thanks so much. This was awesome.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Robert.